Coming up on the second hour of American Sunrise, President Trump demanding the FCC strip liberal networks ABC and NBC of their broadcast licenses. We're unpacking the president's latest Truth Social post accusing the networks of relentlessly negative coverage of his administration. And we are seeing a rise in Americans moving out of the country, many to Ireland. It's not just Rosie O'Donnell. There's been a 96% increase in immigration from the U.S. to the Emerald Isle. Is this the Trump effect? We'll discuss. Plus, the House Oversight Committee is issuing a subpoena for more Jeffrey Epstein files. In moments, why a copy of the alleged birthday book compiled for Epstein's 50th birthday is included in the documents and communications requested. All of that, so much more, as American Sunrise starts again right now.
Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
We have breaking news to share with you.
politics,
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
we've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrence.
And I'm Dr. Gina.
Welcome back, everybody, to the second hour of American Sunrise. I'm David Brody, coming to you from D.C. Let's bring in Dr. G in West Palm, T. Bates in our Denver newsroom. Good morning to both of you. We've got a lot to get to. So, T. Bates, I know you got headlines. We got to move. We got lots to tell you.
Get going.
Absolutely. Let's start with President Trump. He says he's working with Republican leaders on Capitol Hill to draft what he's calling a comprehensive crime bill. The move comes as his crime crackdown in the nation's capital continues, and he is considering expanding a National Guard deployment to Democrat-led cities like Chicago, New York, and Baltimore. 47 made the announcement on Truth Social saying, Speaker Mike Johnson and Leader John Thune are working with me and other Republicans on a comprehensive crime bill. It's what our country needs, and now. While the legislation is being drafted, the Commander-in-Chief has ordered the Department of Defense to ensure that every state has some National Guard troops who are ready to rapidly mobilize to help assist in public safety. During Tuesday's cabinet meeting at the White House, Vice President J.D. Vance praising the president for being a law and order president.
I happen to believe that maybe the most sacred thing that we can deliver to American workers is the ability to live safely and comfortably in their own neighborhoods. Public safety is not just something that should belong to the wealthy. It should belong to every working man and woman in the United States of America. And because of the work of this administration, that is happening.
That was
Thanks,
one of
Terrence.
many
Not a
newsworthy
whole lot-
statements. That was one of many newsworthy statements coming out of Tuesday's marathon, hours-long cabinet meeting. We'll have more reaction from that meeting throughout the show, including Steve Gruber. He'll be joining us shortly. He was there for all 3+ hours of the meeting. Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook fighting back against President Trump's threat to fire her. Cook says she plans to sue in order to prevent President Trump from giving her the boot. Her lawyers say, quote, his attempt to fire her based solely on a referral letter lacks any factual or legal basis. We'll be filing a lawsuit challenging this illegal action. The embattled Fed governor is facing a DOJ investigation after being accused of mortgage fraud by the head of the Federal Housing Finance Agency. The central bank is also out with a statement related to Cook's potential firing, saying, be fired. We're also working to confirm reports that the Senate Banking Finance Committee will hold a hearing next week to consider White House economic advisor Stephen Miron as a Federal Reserve governor. Miron is President Trump's pick for an open seat on that board. And finally, SpaceX's latest test launch of its Starship rocket appears to be a success. Tuesday night's mission saw the first ever deployment of a test payload of 8 dummy satellites into space. The rocket was in orbit for just over an hour before splashing back down to Earth and landing in the Indian Ocean. SpaceX and NASA are now working together to get astronauts back on the moon. Tuesday's flight marked the 10th Starship test. The rocket is the world's biggest and most powerful, and it's slated to be used to get astronauts back on the moon. In fact, NASA has ordered 2 Starships in order to complete that mission by later this decade. All right, folks, let's get a quick check of your nationwide forecast from our friends over at Weather Nation.
Thanks, Terrence. Not a whole lot doing here in the lower 48, which is fine by us. We do have some rain out over the Intermountain West that we're going to be tracking as we go throughout the day today. More concerned about what's going to be going on into Kansas back toward Oklahoma with some heavy rain potential as we get into the next couple of days. But other than that, things fairly quiet, fairly cool out there. We've seen record lows falling by the wayside, in handfuls over the last couple of days. We've got a reinforcing shot of some cooler weather, so if that's your thing, good news. We've got more on the way. And in fact, it looks like it may stick around here for the first week of September. That means things staying fairly quiet at home, staying fairly quiet abroad as well. The tropics staying quiet as we get into the next week or so, which gives us a chance to look back on Hurricane Katrina, the 20-year anniversary coming up as we get into Friday. Terrence, back to you.
All right, Kevin, appreciate that reporting for you. Time now for our political pulse of America.
Thanks, Terrence. Now it is time to take the political pulse of America. The beat today: could President Trump be driving Americans out of the country, with many fleeing to Ireland? New numbers show immigration from the U.S. to Ireland has nearly doubled in the past year, jumping more than 9,600 people. Rosie O'Donnell, of course, is one of them that we know went there. This comes as overall immigration to Ireland actually dropped, and net migration fell sharply compared to the year before. Now Ireland's government is preparing a new immigration strategy as pressure grows over housing shortages and rising migration. For further information, let's welcome to American Sunrise, Steve Gruber. He's the host of America's Voice Live right here on RAV. Steve, before we get to Ireland, you were inside the room for President Trump's marathon cabinet meeting and even got a question. And here's that footage.
In this city, there are 500 people short of the police departmental police. In New York City, it's 3,000. In Chicago, it's 1,300. Would they have had to bring in troops from the National Guard if the police departments in this country were fully staffed? Defund the police. How bad did that turn out for America?
It's an interesting question. I was surprised when I heard how many police were here. It's not a really big area. And I think they said they're down to 3,200 police or something like that. I said, that's a lot of police. And I was a little bit surprised because to me, that's a big force. And it's not a big area, but it is what it is. There's a lot of crime. You have a lot of, don't forget, you have a lot of police that weren't allowed to do their job.
You gave him the Gruber thing that you do. I love that. I have to tell you, my internet was out yesterday, like all day yesterday, and I missed the whole thing. And I realized I really have a problem because I was going berserk trying to watch to see if you would get a question and just to see what all was going on. But quite a thing being in that room and getting a question. What was your take on his answer to you?
Well, I think he came up with a terrific answer, and he said, look, they're short 500 police officers in D.C., here where I'm sitting. The shortage in New York City is 3,000. The shortage in Chicago is 1,300. And you go right down the list. All over America, more than 30,000 police vacancies today. But he said the problem with a lot of it is they're not allowed to do their job. And if they're not allowed to do their job, it doesn't, I guess the takeaway would be, we need more police officers, sure, but if they're not allowed to do their job, what difference will it make? I think it's a great point that he made because so many of these Democrat cities, whether it's D.C. or Chicago or Los Angeles, have, for lack of a better term, handcuffed the police officers. Let the police do their job. If somebody commits a crime, allow the police to arrest them. If somebody spits on a police officer, be allowed to arrest them. And furthermore, Gene, I would say this. Once they are arrested, prosecute them. Don't set them back out with no cash bail, which has been a big policy of Democrat cities. Make sure that these people are held accountable for their crimes. How many times do we have to hear that a criminal's been let out on the streets and they've recommitted a crime and they've been arrested 10 times, 20 times, 100 times, and they're out committing heinous crimes? Look, this is not a tough call. And he made this point several times as he did the president. The Democrats are apparently for crime. Republicans are for law and order and stopping crime. And he thinks it's going to be a big issue, a pivotal issue in 2026 in the midterms. I would agree with that. The economy is going to be number one. Crimes will be number two. I think that's really important. When you look at the fact that he's trying to go to Chicago, for example, Chicago is leading the country, again, 13 years in a row for the total number of murders. And yet, the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, and the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, would have you believe that it's fine in Chicago. If you want 600 murders, I guess if you consider that normal, sure, that's fine. Just shy of 600 murders last year. They might break 600 this year. That's not normal. People don't want that. People want law and order. I mean, that's just the takeaway.
Steve, how are your legs is really the question after standing for 3 hours and 14 minutes through a cabinet meeting. I think that's the question America wants answered this morning, number one. And then number two, the media, the way they are spinning this cabinet meeting yesterday, you have Washington Post headlines, other headlines, New York Times, and the headline is, what did we just see? What was that? You know, like they're just like, they don't get it. Like, they're just like, I can't believe he just did that, because everybody was just praising President Trump and all that. You would think that transparency, they would be all for transparency, right? That's what the media wants, open transparency. But no, instead we get headlines like that.
Yeah, well, first things first. Standing for it was a long time in there. I'm glad I didn't need to use the restroom, so that's important. But who got the most praise? The guys holding those boom mics. The president called them out a couple times. You know, you've got this big challenge between Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Pete Hegseth doing the push-ups and the pull-ups and so forth. Impressive numbers, by the way. But they were all praising the guys holding the boom mics for 3+ hours, because that took a lot, honestly. Now, back to the rest of it. What was the second question? I got lost there.
Oh, the media
comment.
The media.
What a joke. Yeah. Look, here's open government. How many times have you seen a cabinet meeting just open to the public for all to see? And look, here's the big difference between Trump 1.0 and 2.0 as far as the people around him. Everybody at that table believes in the mission. It doesn't matter who you are. Tulsi Gabbard, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Scott Bessent. Pick any one of those members of that cabinet. They're all true believers in their mission, in their department, in their agency, excuse me, and then as a team working together. Several times during that discussion, somebody would raise the idea that I worked with this cabinet member and 6 of us got together to do this and 3 of us got together to do that. They're all working together. What a difference that is from Trump's first term in office, where it seemed like they're all working by themselves to write books and make themselves money on the side, a number of them anyway. You see a cohesiveness in that team. They believe in what they're doing independently in their own departments and collectively as a group. And America got to see that, because Donald Trump made the point. How often do you get to see inside a cabinet meeting for 3+ hours and see the discussions and talk about the progress being made at the Veterans Administration or the Department of Labor or the Department of Education? You pick your place. It was, to me, a lesson in open government. And that's what we want, isn't it? We want transparency. And I thought it was terrific. And to be there was a privilege.
Yeah, that was
all
pretty
3
neat.
hours.
Yeah, for sure. Such a difference. What a difference a president makes, if you will, when the last cabinet meetings under Biden were held by his wife, Jill Biden. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate you as always.
Appreciate you, Steve.
All right, coming up here on the show, a federal judge is temporarily blocking the Trump administration's plan to deport Kilmar Abrego Garcia as the legal battle over his fate intensifies. The latest on the controversy that's playing out in court. And while critics whine about President Trump's crackdown on crime in D.C., the well-trained military force is cleaning up our nation's capital. The response to Trump's efforts to bring the National Guard to other U.S. cities, that's right after the break.